Hi, my name is Venus O'Hara and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to talk about something very different. Someone asked me how I learned Spanish. So I'm going to share with you how I learned Spanish in 3 months. For those of you who don't know, I'm a British expat living in Barcelona, Spain, and I've been here for many years. When I first arrived in Spain, I didn't speak any Spanish. So I'm going to share with you how I went from 0 to fluent Spanish in just 3 months. And now I've written books in Spanish. I used to write for Pais, so my Spanish it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So my first tip has got to be living in the country. I think that is the best way to learn a language. I've been a language teacher and a language learner. And I remember when I was learning French, when I studied French at university, which was a huge help for me when I was learning Spanish. But I remember going to classes and going over a particular grammar rule for several weeks sometimes. But then when I actually lived in Paris, the learning, the volume of learning and the speed was just so much faster. It's totally accelerated. So I think that if you are serious about learning any language, you should try and live in that country for a few weeks or a few months or whatever you can. So that's definitely the best way, because I found that living here in Spain, I didn't actually have any formal Spanish lessons until I'd been here for a year. So that was a good way to just kind of consolidate the grammar I'd learnt. But until that point, it was all about passive learning, really. And that's the wonderful thing about living in the country. For example, if you go to a shop and you see bread, you understand that the word panaderia means bakery. So there's a lot of things that you're seeing every day and a lot of words that you're learning that you're not actively learning. So I really love passive learning, because it means you can watch trash TV and it's not so trash for you because you're actually learning. I'll talk about TV later. So another point I'm going to go over is vocabulary, which is linked to living in the country. For me, I bought a notebook and I wrote down as many words as I could, words that just came into my mind and I thought, I don't know how to say this. Or for example, words that I saw on billboards or just around me or I was listening to. So it was very much just according to the context, really. Just I noted down words all the time, and I think that's one of my best tips ever, because I think you have much more possibilities of remembering a word when you write it down. And so I wrote words down, and also it's a good idea to write sentences down with the word in context so you know how to use it properly. So that's one of my top tips. Another thing I did was I did language exchanges every night of the week. I was living in Madrid and I was an English teacher, and so that was the wonderful thing. I didn't even have to learn Spanish to have a job. It was great. So I met with different people every night. So Monday was someone who was in the Spanish army, so we were talking politics, and then Tuesday was someone else, Wednesday, Thursday, by the time of Thursday it was with drinks and out and about in Madrid and wrote my words down, and then Friday was someone else. But so every time I did language exchange, I was literally speaking, let's say, for an hour in English and then an hour in Spanish, and I always had my notebook as well, so I was noting down words. And yeah, I started doing this after I'd been in Spain for a month, so I had some grasp of some basic conversation skills. But that was a great way to meet people and practice my Spanish. And I know now there are lots of organised language exchanges with big groups of people, so it's actually a really good social opportunity as well. Another tip I just thought of is that I never hung around with other British expats. I tried to avoid them, actually, so I was really concerned about or focused on integrating as much as I could. I think I know people who've been here for many years and they don't speak a word of Spanish, and that's because they've stayed in these expat ghettos or they've gone to Irish pubs all the time, and I think the longer you leave it, the harder it becomes. So just living in the country is actually not enough to learn a language. You have to be living in the country and actively learning. The next thing, which is really important, well, all of these things are really important, is passion. It's so important. I remember when I was I was an English teacher in Madrid, and I remember my students were not passionate about learning English. They feel as though, a lot of English language learners feel as though they have to learn English for employment opportunities, not because they have a love of Anglo-Saxon culture. They just don't care. They just feel obliged to learn a language. Whereas for me, learning Spanish or French, I did it with lots and lots and lots of passion. I was passionate about the culture, the language, lots and lots of things. So that helped me a lot. It gave me that extra incentive to learn. So passion is incredibly important. And then another thing, I can't even read my writing. I don't even know. Okay, next point anyway, TV. Okay, yeah, I remember it now. I wrote phone and computer. I think before I came to Spain, actually, I put my mobile phone in Spanish and my computer. So it's really good because you know the words in the English version, let's say, and it helps you to learn vocabulary, because everything's in the same place, so you get to learn new words in a passive way. So that's quite an easy tip there. So another passive learning tip there. So put your phone in Spanish and your computer. And then finally, last but not least, TV. I don't own a TV now for many, many, many years. I don't like TV at all. But I remember it was incredibly important at the beginning, and especially when I was learning French, because I remember I spoke quite good French before I went to live in Paris. But what happens when you learn a language in your own country is that you might be good at, let's say, grammar, you might know a lot of vocabulary, but then you switch the TV on the radio, and it's like, you don't understand anything because it's a more natural speed, different accents, slang, lots of slang you might not learn in your official language classes. So TV was an excellent way to learn a language and just get good at listening, really. And all those words that keep popping up, you think, oh, what does that mean? And write it down. So anyway, if you are interested in learning a language, I hope this helps, and hope you've enjoyed this video, and see you next time.